Hey beautiful, I hope you're taking care of yourself, staying hydrated, and getting enough sleep. Today, you and Queen Zani are gonna dive deep into Chisa, like her full kit, how she plays, the best echoes, team comps, and a lot more. So let's not waste a single second and get straight into it. Chisa is a 5-star Havoc character who uses a broad blade, and she plays the role of a sub-DPS and support hybrid. The main thing to understand about Chisa is that she fights in 2 different modes, her normal mode and her chainsaw mode. In normal mode, she marks enemies, builds her resources, and prepares for her burst phase. Once she's ready, she switches into chainsaw mode, where all of her attacks change, and she starts tearing through enemies with fast, high-damage combos. A big part of her kit revolves around something called Unseen Snare. Think of it like a mark or a debuff that she places on an enemy. When an enemy has this mark, both Chisa and her teammates deal more effective damage to them. On top of that, Chisa gains special bonuses against those enemies, like ignoring part of their defense, which lets her hit harder. So she really shines when everyone in the team is focusing the same target, because every hit helps her build up even more power. In her normal mode, her attacks have a unique rhythm. You can chain them together by pressing the attack button at the right time to unlock extra moves. If you get the timing right, you'll see new attacks like Rending Lunge, Death Snip, and Thread Withdrawn. These combos deal extra Havoc damage, and Death Snip even heals your entire team a little. While you're attacking in normal mode, Chisa builds up a special gauge called the Ring of Chainsaw. Once that fills up, her skill changes into a move called Serrated Loop. When you use it, she pulls enemies toward her and enters Chainsaw mode. Chainsaw mode completely changes how she plays. Her regular attacks turn into rapid, multi-hit chainsaw swings called Soaring Blitz. You can tap or hold the attack button to perform different stages of the combo, and it feels incredibly fluid once you get used to it. At the end of her combo, she can perform a big finisher called Soaring Eradication, which deals massive Havoc damage and gives your whole team a shield based on her attack stat. The more chainsaw energy you've spent before using that move, the stronger the finisher becomes. Her ultimate skill, called Moment of Nihility, is another huge part of her burst. When you activate it, Chisa slams down and deals a big wave of Havoc damage, healing everyone on your team at the same time. It also powers up her chainsaw attacks for a short duration, so the best way to use it is right before you enter chainsaw mode. That way, you get the full benefit of the damage boost while you're swinging away. Chisa also has to manage a couple of special resources. The first one, like I mentioned, is the Ring of Chainsaw, which lets her enter chainsaw mode. She also has another one called Life Thread Jetstream, which she uses for some of her more advanced movement skills, like Life Thread Glide. That's where she can quickly move through the air or pull enemies together. And then there's Chainsaw Fever, which only appears in chainsaw mode. It's basically a timer. If you stop attacking for too long, that meter drains, and she'll eventually burn out and drop back to her normal state. What really makes Chisa stand out is how much she supports the team while dealing damage. She heals through her Death Snip combo. She gives shields with her finisher, and her ultimate provides both burst healing and extra buffs. Even her passives are designed to help her team. If an enemy marked by Unseen Snare is defeated, her skill cooldown resets, letting her jump right back into her setup. She also gets bonus Havoc damage and healing whenever she uses her ultimate or intro skill, so she's constantly cycling between boosting, attacking, and supporting. Even when she's off-field, she's useful. Her outro skill gives your team a buff that lets them apply more negative status effects to enemies and boost their damage with those effects. So she still adds value even when she's not actively fighting. If you're new to the game, Chisa might look a bit complicated at first, but once you understand her rhythm, she's actually pretty straightforward. But when you start building Chisa, the first thing that confuses everyone is her skill priority. But when you break it down, upgrading her becomes super simple once you understand where her real strength comes from. The very first thing you want to invest in is her inherent skill. Chisa's passives literally unlock her entire playstyle. They make her damage smoother, they help her spread Unseen Snare faster, they boost her Havoc damage, her healing. Basically, they strengthen everything she does, all at once. After that, you move straight into her Forte. Her Forte is everything Chainsaw related. Her blitz combos, her eradication nuke, how fast she builds chainsaw meter, how hard she hits when she burns it. Then comes her resonance liberation, which is also super important, but it functions a bit like a power boost that amplifies what you already upgraded. Her liberation gives her a huge Havoc burst, heals the team, and most importantly, supercharges the damage of her chainsaw combos. But here's the thing, the liberation buffs the Forte, and because you always want the core damage to be strong before you amplify it, her liberation naturally becomes the third thing you level. After that, her resonance skill comes next. This one is important because it helps her enter chainsaw mode, apply Unseen Snare, and maintain her rhythm. But unlike her Forte or liberation, this skill doesn't give you massive damage spikes. It's more like the glue that holds her combo flow together. You still upgrade it, just not before the parts that actually deal most of the damage. And finally, her intro skill goes last. It's nice, it hits, it gives resources, and it helps her start off a rotation cleanly. But compared to the rest of her kit, it's the least impactful to level up. So overall, the upgrade order is built around how Chisa's kit actually works. And when it comes to Chisa's resonance chain, not every node is equal. So instead of going through everything, let's focus only on the ones that actually matter. The first important breakpoint is S1. It fixes one of Chisa's biggest issues, her chainsaw. Getting interrupted mid-combo feels horrible. S1 makes her immune to interruption during her blitz and eradication chains, which means you finally get to play her the way she was designed. And on top of that, every time she applies Unseen Snare, she gets a big 30% attack buff and deals a chunk of fixed Havoc damage once per target. It's not a crazy damage spike, but it stabilizes her gameplay and boosts her consistency. That's why S1 is considered her first real quality of life and performance upgrade. Next, we jump to S2, which is honestly one of her best and most cost-efficient resonance chains. S2 gives her the ability to ignore Havoc resistance, which already increases her personal damage. But the real value is how much it buffs the team. Any teammate who's under threat of Bane gets a massive 50% all-attribute damage bonus. That is huge. It turns Chisa into a real team amplifier. If you're someone who wants both strong personal damage and strong team value without spending crazy amounts of resources, S2 is the sweet spot. Then we have S3, which massively boosts the multipliers of her Soaring Blitz and Eradication, and these are her main damage sources. It also doubles the damage scaling she gets from consuming Chainsaw Meter. If your goal is purely to increase her personal DPS, S3 is the biggest jump in raw numbers. And finally, the last important one is S6. This is her true final form. It gives her survivability, but more importantly, it upgrades Unseen Snare into Unseen Snare Finality. This is a massive buff that increases how much damage enemies take from negative statuses and from Chisa herself. At S6, Chisa becomes safer, stronger, and more supportive at the same time. This is the node for people who want her absolutely maxed out. Her strongest version, no compromises. So when you put together, the important chains are S1 for stability, S2 for team amplification, S3 for huge personal damage, and S6 for her complete peak form. Everything else is nice to have, but these are the ones that actually change how she plays and how strong she becomes. Now, let's talk about team comps, because this is where Chisa becomes way more interesting than people first expect. She's not your traditional damage dealer, and she's not a pure support either. She sits in this unique hybrid space, where her value comes from enabling other units, especially those who deal negative status damage or DOT. So in her first team, we're running Cartithia as the main DPS, Sayakona as the sub-DPS, and Chisa as the support. And honestly, this team makes perfect sense. Cartithia and Sayakona both apply erosion extremely frequently, and Chisa's entire support kit is built around amplifying the damage of any enemy suffering from negative status. The more erosion stacks you apply, the more Chisa's buff starts scaling. This synergy is especially strong in this team because erosion ticks non-stop, meaning Chisa is constantly triggering her passive boosts, her Havoc Bane stacks, and her defense shred. That's why Cartithia's team ends up squeezing out even more value from Chisa than most others. They naturally play into her strengths without any extra effort. Now for the second team, we've got Zani as the main DPS, Phoebe as sub-DPS, and again Chisa taking the support slot. And this team also works really well, but in a slightly different way. As long as enemies have Chisa's negative status effect on them, which they will because her uptime on Unseen Snare is insanely high, Zani gets boosted damage, boosted DOT ticks, and better overall scaling. Phoebe already showed us how strong a DOT-oriented support can be when placed with the right DPS. So while Cartithia's team uses Chisa for frequency of debuffs, Zani's team uses Chisa for amplification of DOT bursts. Both are strong, just in different flavors. Now, a lot of people compare her to Yuno, the hybrid who supports the team and does huge damage at the same time. And yes, Chisa is not on Yuno's level when it comes to personal DPS. But that's not what she's designed for. Chisa leans more into boosting her team, increasing negative status output, and creating these powerful layered damage windows. If she also had massive personal damage on top of all of this, she would honestly be broken. Now about her team flexibility. I know her current team options feel a little limited because she really shines in DOT-focused setups, but this is exactly how Kuro usually designs things. They release supports first, and then later introduce the DPS units that truly unlock their potential. We saw this with Phoebe and Zani, and with Chisa being clearly built as a long-term DOT support, there's a very good chance future characters will fit perfectly with her kit. So even if her teams look small right now, the potential is huge. Any future DOT unit will immediately turn her into a core team piece. That's why I think Chisa is one of those characters who might not look insane on day one, but she's the type who ages extremely well. Now let's talk about her best echo sets, because just like most characters released in the last few patches, Chisa is also a 3-piece set enjoyer, and luckily, her best set is extremely straightforward. The strongest 3-piece echo set for her is Thread of Severed Fate. Why this set? Because it directly rewards the thing Chisa already does non-stop, inflicting Havoc Bane. Every time she applies Havoc Bane, she gets a clean 20% attack increase and a 30% resonance liberation damage bonus for 5 seconds. And since Havoc Bane is constantly refreshing as long as she's applying her negative status effect, she basically keeps this buff up the entire fight. It just fits her kit perfectly. Now, to finish the remaining 2 slots, you can pair this with any Havoc set, like Sun Sinking Eclipse or Midnight Veil, which both give a simple but effective 10% Havoc damage bonus. For the main echo, the best in slot is Reminiscence Threnodian Leviathan, and this thing is basically made for her. When you use it, it summons a Collapsing Horizon that hits twice with Havoc damage, and then gives you the Core of Collapse, which automatically deals extra Havoc damage every time your active unit attacks. And here's the part that makes it perfect for Chisa. Enemies affected by Havoc Bane take 100% more damage from this effect. And who constantly applies Havoc Bane? Exactly, Chisa. Plus, Leviathan also gives bonus Havoc damage and bonus Resonance Liberation damage, both of which directly boost her chainsaw playstyle. And if your team needs a little more survivability, you can also consider running 2-piece Rejuvenating Glow. This set is perfect when you want extra healing bonus and a team-wide attack increase. It doesn't boost her personal damage as much as the Havoc sets, but it strengthens her supportive side and helps your entire team. So to sum it up in the simplest way, Chisa's best echo setup is 3-piece Thread of Severed Fate, paired with 2-piece Sunsinking Eclipse or Midnight Veil, and Threnodian Leviathan as the main echo. Now, let's talk about the best main stats and substats for Chisa. Because no matter how good your echo sets are, if the stats aren't right, you're losing a ton of free damage. For the main stats, it really depends on whether you're building her more offensively or leaning into her healing side. If you're treating her as a damage-focused support, then on your 4-cost echo, you want either crit rate or crit damage, whichever helps you balance your ratios better. On the 3-cost slot, you go for Havoc damage percent or attack percent, and your 1-cost echo should simply be attack. This setup boosts all of her chainsaw damage, her resonance liberation, and even her Havoc Bane interactions. But if you're trying to play her in a more healer hybrid way, then the 4-cost main stat can be healing bonus, or still crit rate and crit damage if you want to keep her output high. The 3-cost and 1-cost stay the same: Havoc damage percent, attack percent, and attack. Now for the substats. This part is very straightforward. Crit stats come first because they scale every single part of her kit: her chainsaw attacks, her skill damage, and even her echo damage. Attack percent is your next best multiplier. Resonance liberation damage helps her big burst mode feel much stronger, especially when paired with Thread of Severed Fate. And energy regeneration is just a nice bonus for smoother rotations, not a must-have. So in simple terms, go for crits first, go for attack next, and fill the rest with damage-boosting stats that support her liberation and chainsaw mode. Now let's talk about Chisa's best weapons, because this part is honestly very important for her. Some characters can survive without their signature, but Chisa, she is not one of them. Her signature weapon is absolutely her best in slot. And to be completely honest, it feels almost mandatory. Chisa's base kit already leans heavily into resonance liberation and negative status stacking, but this weapon multiplies all of that and pushes her into a completely different league. It gives her an immediate 12% attack increase, which already boosts both her damage and her healing. But the real magic is the passive. Every time she uses her intro skill or applies a negative status, something she does constantly, she gains up to 24% resonance liberation damage bonus, and once she reaches max stacks, the whole team gets a 24% all attribute damage bonus whenever they inflict negative status. And since Chisa is constantly refreshing negative statuses anyway, this buff stays active almost permanently. This is why her signature weapon is so strong. It doesn't just make her better, it boosts the entire team. Without this weapon, her burst windows and team support feel noticeably weaker. So if you're planning to use Chisa seriously, please try your best to get her signature. But don't worry, if you're low on pulls, she still has some really solid alternatives like Wildfire Mark, Lustrous Razor, and Autumn Trace. Now, let's move on to her ascension materials, because you'll be farming these a lot if you plan to build her properly. To level Chisa herself, you're mainly going to need Summer Flower, Abyssal Husks, and of course Polygon Cores. But when it comes to her Forte upgrades, things get a bit more serious. You're going to need Wave-Worn Residue from the Forgery Challenge, but then there's also the weekly boss drop from the Threnodian Leviathan. That one's the real limiter since you only get a few chances per week. And yes, you'll need even more Polygon Cores because Chisa apparently can't get enough of them. And with that, we've covered everything about Chisa, her strengths, weapons, and what you'll need to fully build her. If you've stayed with me all the way until the end, seriously, you're a legend.